Michael Pierce came out with his most recent ESFJ video where he sort of compared INTJs as like the most sort of individualistic of types to kind of show that like ESFJs are like one of the most democratic of types. And I really resonated like with everything he said about INTJs. So I'm really excited to talk to another INTJ about this, and hopefully we can share our experiences on this theory. Okay, well, he said that we're kind of very ethically separate and self-contained from everyone. And because of that, our happiness is very internally derived. Like, our happiness doesn't have to do with anyone else's happiness. So I think he was saying that, like, the ESFJ wouldn't even know how to orient themselves in, like, a social vacuum where they were just, like, alone. Because they're like, well, I need other people to, like, have ideas and to, like, know what makes me happy because, you know, interacting with people and meeting people's needs makes me happy. So in the opposite, it's like, yeah, we could probably be in a social vacuum and be, like, very happy because we can just like attend to our own needs first.
Yeah, like living alone is the most joyous thing I've ever experienced.
Right, yeah.
I remember when I used to live in BC, British Columbia, for a year.
Oh, nice.
And I used to come home from work, I would open the door and I would say, I'm home. And my voice would echo through the room and I would be like, oh,
yay. Yeah.
But and then I've also lived with an ESFJ, and I mean they're lovable, but I just really desperately needed space. I couldn't get any.
Yeah. And this is something I feel like I've learned the hard way. I do feel like, yeah, I just kind of have to only take what I think into account when making decisions for my happiness ultimately. I mean, not to say that we can't be like respectful to other people's needs and relationships and such. But yeah, I do feel like there have been times where I've tried to kind of like accommodate for other people's just kind of preferences, but maybe not so much in terms of relationship, but just in terms of what they thought would be best for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I can necessarily do that. Maybe other people, yeah, maybe people like on the SFJ NTP side would somewhat see the value in that perhaps, but I feel like I just don't. And that's also part of the kind of maybe like arrogant independence, but I like as much as I would like to, I can't. I feel like I just have to kind of look into my own compass as how to make decisions and how to find happiness for myself.
Yeah. And I think we have that pressure always, being that maybe INTJs are not as common, and then perhaps even further because we're females. It's kind of a pressure that we should be following sort of FE things. And at a certain point, I thought growing up was FE. Like caring about others and being responsible for others and things like that. And I didn't really ever hear anybody tell me that being independent is growing up and being self-reliant and being able to know yourself really well and follow your dreams and things like that, being the thing that is growing up. So, and I think that depends on who your family, like which types you see yourself, you see around in your family, which may influence your idea of whether FI is valued or whether FE is valued. But I thought when I was trying to be more FE oriented, I thought that I was being an adult, a mature adult. And I realized that I got to a point where it made me so miserable that I just could not take it anymore. And I realized like I need to own my FI more.
Yeah, I feel like I eventually had to come to terms and feel like, well, yeah, because I feel like FE is so valued, and in some way I do kind of like value FE in some way, or like I see the purpose of it, right? But yeah, I think at the end of the day, I feel like MBTI is sort of like, in some sense, almost like our purpose in this world. It's like if like everybody has like a unique set of cognitive functions, that has their own strengths and their own weaknesses. And ultimately, if you're not following your own strengths, and you're just not bringing like your best self to the world and what you could actually provide to the world. So maybe it's like this kind of backwards FE, and that like being our FI selves is ultimately providing like the most service to the world.
I think that's kind of similar to the fountainhead. The idea that each person should be their best, most optimal self. And that is what creates a good society. And I really agree with that to such a high degree. I can't even explain it. And I think the only thing I really wished for since I was younger was that people around me be as independent as possible. Because when you're independent, all your needs are met by yourself. And then you can do things like you wouldn't have as many problems in the world, I think. I have a feeling that FI is the way to world peace.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, I bet like FE users would totally disagree with that, but yeah, I can totally see what
like
what
everybody
saying.
Just mind your own business, like
right. Okay, everyone mind your own business. That's a perfect way to phrase it. I feel like another thing I don't understand is when people believe that somebody should be doing something, and like someone has a value, but then they're like, oh, I'm not just going to hold myself to that value, I expect everyone else to comply with my values. And I mean, I get it when I would say I only maybe hold this sort of principle when like other people are like hurting other people or something.
yeah.
Then I can see that. But if it's not hurting anyone and someone still is like, no, I think everybody should be doing this, and they're actually taking measures to like assert their values onto other people, like I really don't understand that.
I totally agree with you. I don't think FI has anything to do with like watching other people suffer or wanting something bad for anybody else. I think we share that with FE as basic human rights and things like that. I think are part of the FI realm because they help individuals carry out their life in a happy, healthy way. So I think more than FE, FI is a champion for people's rights and wanting each individual to have the same amount of potential to succeed in their life, but according to their own way of living. So yeah, that's the difference to me.
Okay, I guess the last point I had written down here was that I guess individualism also sort of conjures this idea of like being nonconformist. And I guess we kind of talked about that a bit already. And I feel like maybe this is just like my idea of nonconformity, but I feel like we probably are in nature, but we might not necessarily always seem like it outwardly. Because I think like INTJs, we don't like to draw a lot of attention to ourselves, right? So we might not necessarily go out of our way to be nonconformists. Like some types might, especially like maybe Enneagram type 4s might enjoy doing that, but I feel like generally I kind of like I like to keep to the background. I don't like to necessarily draw attention to myself, unless my FI feels like I need to for some sort of cause or something. But in some way, yeah, I feel like maybe we're kind of like quiet or subtle nonconformists in that sense. And I kind of agree with it maybe in terms of like the social realm. Like I feel like a lot of ways I really don't care about social norms and niceties anymore. If it doesn't really serve me, then I feel like I've just kind of given up on that.
Yeah. Also, I think so. Two things based on what you said. One is I think we're more of the type who will support the kinds of things that come out of like say protest march and things like that. Like I find people with higher FI probably want to show exactly what they think to other people. INTJs with their tertiary FI probably internally agree with everything that a protest is about, and they agree, individual rights, etc. But they're not going to make a show of it. it's like if you come and tell them, hey, do you want to sign this petition? I will say, okay, here you go. And that's it. Like, it's not really trying to tell other people how different it is at all times.
Right.
But it is different. And if you piss it off, it will definitely show you that it is different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I relate to that a lot. Yeah, I do feel like there are times where it just, my FI's been rubbed the wrong way, and I'm just like, no, this is wrong. So I just like, I will make a statement about it to like this person or whatever. Yeah. But generally, we're not kind of like the really loud social activists. I mean, maybe we could be, but I feel like perhaps it's more of like the NFJs who like see that very singular vision. So they see reality in the same way that we do, but then they have that need to kind of like share it with everyone in an FE way. And so maybe for us, it's more self-contained, and it's like, yes, I know that I will hold myself to these principles. And in that way, maybe that kind of, I don't know, I feel like...
That's actually really interesting what you just said. You said we hold ourselves to those ideals or those principles, and that is again a very independent way of being. Like it's like I have these values and I will live my life according to those values, and I want other people to live according to their values, but we don't need to tell everybody and make sure other people live by our values.
Right.
I think that's the main key.
Yeah, there's just no natural impetus, I guess, for us based on their cognitive functions to go out and share. Because sometimes I almost feel like sometimes people may not even recognize that in me. Yeah, I feel like maybe this is an NIFI thing as well. It's like our kind of identity is very internal. So maybe I have this kind of idea of who I am and what my FI values are, and then probably maybe it doesn't come out externally a lot. So sometimes maybe people don't always see all my FI values, and then sometimes that frustrates me a little bit. Not because they're doing anything wrong or anything. I realize like, oh yeah, I probably... Maybe this is just like, again, going back to like, it's kind of difficult for us to relate to people because of this. We're kind of, our cognitive functions are so self-contained, and we're just very kind of in our own FI and I space. So then maybe other people don't always see that, and that kind of creates this barrier for not only for us to understand other people, but for other people to understand us as well.
Yeah, I think that's really bang on, because I think FE is more likely to express how they feel and how others make them feel. So there's a sense that other people understand me and they get along with me and I get along with them. There's like this shared understanding of what each other feels. FI, on the other hand, kind of keeps to itself, and others don't even know when they're sometimes trampling over our values, our needs, and because maybe we don't express them. And FI tends to create like almost, well, at least at a tertiary FI maybe, it tends to create like boundaries between the other and themselves by not expressing that they want boundaries, but they just kind of don't express much to that person anymore. So they find there's like, I don't know if you've ever noticed or other people around you have told you, but you kind of look like you don't want to talk to other people.
Yeah.
Because you're just trying to create like a invisible boundary between you and everybody else.
Yeah, I guess it's like all our external functions are just sort of looking at like what is objective. So it's nothing personalized in that sense, right? It's nothing to like really connect to, and all of the kind of our personalized functions are like internal, so then no one really has access to that unless we actually make a point to externalize it. So like, yeah, generally people have kind of told me that like I'm mysterious or something, or that they can't really figure me out, and I'm a little bit like, I understand that now, but at the time I was like always a little bit hurt by that. I'm like, oh, I don't feel like I'm intending to keep myself in, but I guess that's just a natural process of our minds.
Yeah, actually, I remember I was in grade 7 the first time when someone said to me that I look like I think I'm above everybody else, and I was like, what? No, I want to be friends. Like, I had no idea. And I think that's when it started to, I started to come into an understanding that I am a little bit different from other people. And oh, I remembered now what I was going to say earlier.
Okay.
So the fact that we don't express our feelings and emotions and values very easily, we don't bond easily with others. So I remember when I was growing up in high school or even earlier, I would see two girls kind of get excited about seeing each other and hugging and screaming and things like that. And I would just come to them and I wouldn't have any of those expressions or feelings.
Yeah.
And I think I wanted that, but I didn't know how to do it. And I think you mentioned something like this in one of your videos with Calypso, or maybe it was just your own video, where we notice FE and we think it probably feels good to have FE, and we kind of look at it and we're like, what makes that work?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do. Yeah, I think I talked about that. Yeah, no, that's totally an experience I had growing up. And you kind of like look at it longingly. It's like I have no idea how to do that, but I want connection. Like, yeah, I think like even like these so-called individualistic types, like I think we all need connection with other people, right? So it's not like we don't have those needs, but then yet I guess our cognitive functions are just set up that it's not easy for us to always make those connections. And especially when growing up, I feel like maybe the SFPs with the higher up SEFI would just maybe kind of follow their impulses, and that might be a little bit easier for them to form connections. But, you know, within the four types that are like the so-called individualists from Michael Pierce, I feel like the introverted, you know, NTJ, which is the INTJ, would probably experience the most difficulty kind of getting outside of our cognitive functions to bond with other people.
Yeah, but I was going to say that I think higher FI is appreciated for its FI because it is sure of knowing its own values completely and expressing them through NE or SE or whatever. And others are able to see that and appreciate it. But at tertiary FI doesn't express itself, and so it appears to others that they don't have these feelings or these needs, but they do.
Yeah.
So that's another thing.
That's true.